The last few Snare Saturday videos have featured a snare drum from a fellow viewer. John Spagnolo, aka Spags, was looking for a boutique snare drum that had a sound he couldn't get from any other snare drum. And after having a few conversations with him, he decided to go with the 6.5 by 14 Ludwig Black Beauty model LB417BT. Now what makes this drum a little bit different than your typical Black Beauty is that it has tube lugs and die-cast hoops. Plus the gold hardware makes it look pretty sweet. And per Spag's request, he wanted me to make a video trying out every Canopus snare wire on his snare drum to see which one best fits his needs, but also to see if there is a difference between all of these snare wires with a Black Beauty that's a little bit shallower than the 8x14 I had in an earlier Snare Saturday video. So let's go ahead and see if snare wires really affect the sound of a 6.5 by 14 Ludwig Black Beauty. For those of you who might be unfamiliar with the channel, hi, welcome. My name is Costa and I am a drummer from Philly, PA. Now before we dive into this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification. That way you're notified of any additional content that I upload to the channel. Let's go ahead and talk about the specs of this Black Beauty snare drum. Like I mentioned earlier, it is a 6.5 by 14 shell. And since it is a Ludwig Black Beauty that is often imitated and never duplicated, it is a 1.2 millimeter seamless black nickel over brass shell with a bead in the center. Now this particular model, the LB417BT, is outfitted with 10 double-sided tube lugs, die-cast hoops on the top and the bottom, Ludwig's P88 AC throw-off, and P35P butt plate. So not only is the hardware just a little bit different than your typical Black Beauty with imperial lugs and triple flange hoops, the hardware on this drum is brass plated. Now for this video, this drum is outfitted with the stock heads from the Ludwig factory. They are Ludwig branded Remo heads, and it's safe to say it's a Remo Ambassador coated head on the top and an Ambassador snare side head on the bottom. Well, I got some exciting news. I'm going to Canada, and it's because I will be presenting at the Canadian Percussion Network's The Space Between Four event at the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, Canada. So if you are in Canada, or if you wanted to have an excuse to go to Canada, this is a great opportunity for you. This is a multi-day event from August the 8th to August the 10th. The Canadian Percussion Network received a grant to make sure that anybody in attendance gets to go to this, and there's no cost. So get an excuse to go somewhere fun, hang out with a bunch of drummers, and it's only costing you your travel expenses. Plus, I'd love to meet you in person. So for more information, simply click the link below, and I look forward to seeing you all in just a couple weeks. Now let's go ahead and talk about the specs of all of the snare wires that will be featured in this video. If you have been following along with the Snare Saturday series and have seen the earlier videos where I'm doing the same thing, then you already know the deal. Canopus has two different lines of snare wires. They have their Vintage series and they have their Backbeat series. Now starting with the Vintage series, there are three different models. You have a dry version and a chrome plated version. Both of these are 20 strand configurations. And then finally a 16 strand dry configuration. Now according to Canopus's website, the dry models are supposed to be used on wood drums, and the chrome-plated ones are supposed to be used on metal drums. But at the end of the day, whichever one sounds best for you, put them on your drum. And with the Vintage series wires, these were designed based off of the snare wires you would find on Slingerland and Ludwig drums from the 1960s. Hence why they are offering them in a 20-strand configuration, which is more modern, and a 16-strand configuration because you would see more 16 strands on older drums from the 60s. Now, let's go ahead and move on to the Backbeat series. There are four different options with the Backbeats. Once again, you have a dry version and a chrome-plated version. And once again, the dry version is supposed to be for wood drums and chrome-plated is supposed to be for metal drums. And then finally, you have some wider configurations like the 30-strand and the 42-strand configurations. Fair warning though, if you are somebody who does prefer snare wires that have more strands to them, just make sure that your snare drum has a wide enough snare bed. If the snare bed is pretty narrow and you put a 30 or 42 strand configuration on the drum, some of those wires are going to start to hang over the bed and you're going to get a lot of sympathetic buzz. Now, for this video, just like all of the other snare wire shootout videos, I'm going to play this drum in one specific tuning, the one that I think sounds best for the drum, and I will transition from one snare wire to the next. I will start out with the generic wires that came with the drum from the Ludwig factory. Then I'll move over to the Canopus wires. I'll start out with the vintage series first, so the 20 strand dry followed by the 20 strand chrome. And then I will wrap up with the 16 strand vintage series. After that, I'll move over to the Backbeat series, and once again, I'll start out with the dry 20 strand Backbeat, and then the chrome plated 20 strand Backbeat. Finally, I'll wrap up with the wider snare wires, starting with the 30 strand, and then moving over to the 42 strand. So, enough of me talking, let's dive in. So now that you've had the opportunity to hear this Ludwig 6.5 by 14 Black Beauty snare drum with 8 different snare wires on it, could you hear a difference? Also, which configuration was your favorite? I would love to know, so let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you have any other additional questions, whether it is on the snare wires, the snare drum itself, the gear that I am playing in this video, or anything else, feel free to leave it all in the comment section, and I will try my best to answer them. If there was a specific snare wire that caught your ear in this video and you're looking to get a set for yourself, I have affiliate links for all of the Canopus snare wires in the description below. I also have a link for the snare wire belt that I am using to connect the wires to the drum, so you never have to worry about the snare wires slipping while you're playing the drum. If you would like to check out the earlier Snare Saturday video where I unbox and demo this drum through a few more tunings to see how versatile it is, I've put a link to that video in the description below. And if you'd like to check out some of the other snare wire shootout videos from the Snare Saturday series, I've put links to all of those videos in the description below as well. Finally, if you want to check out the entire Snare Saturday series to see what this is all about, there is a link to the playlist in the description below as well, and I'll also have it come up right here to make it a bit easier for you. Finally, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure that you give it a thumbs up. That not only makes it easier for others to find it, it is a free and easy way to support the channel. And that is it. Thank you so much for checking out this video on Do Snare Wires Affect the Sound of a 6.5 by 14 Black Beauty snare drum? And until next time, see you later.